How's it, folks? Now that Baldur's Gate 3 has just had its full release, there will be a lot of new people interested in trying out this epic role-playing game, many of whom may have never played a cRPG before, so hopefully this video will give you some tips and tricks to have fun and make the most of the game. So to start us off with the character creation, there is almost a mind-boggling amount of choices and options here that may seem a little daunting. Also, don't click the proceed button at the bottom until you are ready to play, as that will skip any character customization you may be looking forward to. If you want a pre-made character with its own backstory and motivations, then there are a few origin characters that are fleshed out and could be worth giving a shot. Although, for any new players, I would recommend against choosing the Dark Urge, as that origin has a number of extra complications that make a first playthrough difficult, or if you're still learning the ropes. One other thing is don't stress too much over your build, as very early on there is a character that can join your party that will allow you to respec for a small fee, although it's probably best to just specialize your character instead of trying to make a jack of all trades. Next up involves looting almost everything you come across. Hold the Alt key to highlight lootable objects, although there are some objects that won't get highlighted even though you can loot them, like barrels and containers. Use the Alt key to get an idea of something you can loot if it's difficult to make out. Otherwise, use contextual clues and mouse over them, and it won't be long before you can recognize what you can and can't loot. Bear in mind you do have a carry weight. To get around this, transfer items to your camp or to other companions. Pressing the R key will show your inventory and the Tab key will show the whole party's inventory. When you are looting something, you can choose to send it to one of your companions or the camp, and there is another option which involves picking it up and marking it as wares, which allow you to bulk sell all of it to a merchant at once, saving a fair amount of time and hassle. On a similar vein, explore as much as you can. This is a deep game with lots of secrets and hidden areas to discover, some of which will involve platforming. You may need to use the jump shortcut key of Z to climb to otherwise out of sight areas that contain loot, or being able to maneuver around combat situations to get in a better position to get an ambush that may wipe out a fair amount of unsuspecting enemies. Having a rogue or someone with high dexterity can help you to lockpick doors to gain access to otherwise inaccessible areas and nice loot, and may also help to spot traps. Just make sure you have the thieving tools which contain the lockpicks. Speaking of traps, save often. There are multiple ways to die and lose a lot of progress in BG3. The F5 key will quite literally be a lifesaver, and if you aren't interested in multiple playthroughs, you can quick save before conversations to see how they will turn out before reloading. Speaking of saves though, make sure your game is set to private or should be friends only by default, as if another player joins your game, their character will remain at your camp and you can't get rid of them, at least in the current version of the game. Next, I want to bring up dice rolls which make up a fair amount of the game. You will probably have karmic dice on by default, which means you won't have a string of critical failures or successes. I would recommend new players to keep this option on. Another thing you'll want to work towards is having an advantage, which generally means having a height advantage or clear line of sight, or being knowledgeable in the subject, and means you will roll 2 die and take the result of the best one. A disadvantage works in a similar but opposite manner and will take the worst of the 2 die rolls. It is possible to cast spells out of combat, and you can charm someone to gain an advantage if you need an easier chance against them, or just use it to cast the speak with animal spell and have a conversation with a cat. Speaking of spells, there are a certain amount of spell slots or charges your characters have, and they won't be able to cast anymore if they use up all of their spell slots. If you have 2 spell 1 slots and cast the same level 1 spell twice, you won't be able to cast any other level 1 spell, as you would have used up all of your slots already. On the other hand, cantrips don't take up a slot and can be cast as often as you want. In order to recover spell slots, you will need to rest, which brings me neatly on to resting. You can short rest twice for every long rest, and doing a long rest consumes camp resources, which is basically food. Long resting takes you to camp where you can advance certain questlines with characters and learn more about them. If a character has an exclamation mark above their head, then they have something pretty important to say, and the campsite is also important if you are wanting to get a deeper relationship with them. Just keep an eye on your resources. The campsite is also where you can revive dead companions and summon extra help from the character I alluded to earlier in the video. Next topic I want to bring up is inspiration. You gain inspiration or become inspired after certain actions and choices you make that align with your background. For example, a noble finding a rare trinket for their collection, or a mage discovering some lost arcane secret. You can use your inspiration to get a free reroll whenever you need it, which could save you from having to reload after accomplishing a fair deal. Next up, I want to bring up positioning and controlling the battlefield. There is a lot going on and many combinations worth trying out, but don't feel bad about sticking to the basics. If the enemy can't see you, then they generally can't hit you. Use obstacles or move into cover to avoid being hit or create choke points that require the enemy to come through. You can also set traps or throw a pot that will allow you to set up a combination attack, with perhaps the most common one being spraying grease all over the floor, then setting it on fire to cause a nice explosion. Also, don't forget about bonus actions like the shove enemy one that can send someone tumbling down a cliff to their death. You don't have to hit everyone to kill them. Part of the fun of this game is being creative. On a similar note, you can throw potions at your companions if they are low on health or need some emergency fire resistance. The next one is about role-playing. Sometimes it may be the best option to take control of one of your companions if they have a particular race or class that will open up extra dialogue options or continue quest lines in a beneficial way. For instance, I came across a book that was locked somehow, and my warrior character failed the roll to punch the lock open, and he's a bit of an idiot, so he couldn't magic it open. On the other hand, swapping over to Gale, our resident magic man, provided an extra option that lowered the roll needed to a 10 instead of a 15, which he managed to get. One bonus tip involves going into the turn-based game mode if you require a bit more finesse to do something, like perhaps sneaking up on someone. You can do this at any time by pressing Shift and Space, or pressing the big button at the bottom right of the screen. And if you want to see vision cones of people around you to avoid being caught, then hold down the Shift key. Last bonus tip involves a bit of a spoiler for the tutorial area, so if you want to go in blind, then stop watching. In the last area of the Nautiloid ship, where the Mind Flayer orders you to take control of the helm, you should fight and kill the commander for a nice two-handed sword with flaming damage that will give your character or whichever melee fighter is in your party a strong start. Just bear in mind that there is a time limit, so you will need at least one of your companions to make your way further to the helm to activate it after killing the commander. Don't bother trying to kill the Mind Flayer as the loot isn't worth it, and just end the tutorial after killing the commander. And that's it folks. I hope some of you found this information useful, and if you would like to see me make more guides for BG3, then clapping that like and or subscribe button will be a great indicator for me. Otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic day, take care, and cheers for now.